The sun on the alien colony world was always dim, like the sky never wanted to wake up. The wind carried the smell of metal and old dust as the human man walked through the crowded market street. He was tired, hungry, and only here because his ship had broken down on re-entry. His name was Rail, and he had no plans to stay. He just wanted parts for his ship and a quiet place to rest, but something strange happened. A small hand grabbed his. He turned in surprise, expecting a thief or a lost child, but what he saw made him freeze. It was a little alien girl, maybe 6 or 7, with glowing violet eyes and silver blue skin. Her clothes were patched and faded, and her voice was soft like a whisper, trying to be brave. "Are you single?" she asked without looking away from his face. Rail blinked, unsure if he heard her right. He looked around, thinking maybe someone was playing a joke. The child didn't smile. She took a step closer and said again, slower this time, "My mom is really kind. You have to marry her." The market around them had gone quiet. All the noise, the shouts of merchants, the calls of transport drones, even the hum of background music had vanished, like someone had turned off the sound. Rail bent down a little, trying to smile, but confusion filled his voice. "Why would you ask me that?" The child looked over her shoulder, eyes scanning the crowd, then whispered something that made his heart beat faster. "They are watching her. She's not safe. You're human, and that means you can save her." Rail felt his stomach tighten. He had heard stories of alien societies with harsh laws, especially in outer colony worlds where humans were rare. Still, this felt like something deeper, something personal. He crouched down, lowered his voice, and asked gently, "Where is your mom?" The girl reached into her bag and handed him something. It looked like a bracelet, worn and scratched, but with earth markings. It was military, old generation. His eyes widened. Only someone who had served with humans long ago would carry something like this. "Come with me," she said. He followed her through narrow alleys behind the market. The walls were high and covered in peeling paint and strange writing. The deeper they went, the colder it felt. The people here avoided eye contact. Some looked away. Some looked afraid. They stopped outside a small home made of scrap metal and canvas. The child opened the door quietly and motioned him to enter inside. The room was dim and smelled of oil and smoke. A tall alien woman stood over a heating unit, fixing it with steady hands. Her back was to them. Her shoulders were strong but tired. She turned slowly when she heard him. Her eyes, same violet glow as the child's, locked on Rail. Her face had scars that told of battle, and her expression stayed calm. Even when surprised, the child ran to her and pulled her hand. "I found him." I asked the question. "He came." The woman knelt beside the child, touched her cheek, then looked at Rail again. "You should leave," she said with a voice low and firm. Rail stepped forward, holding the bracelet. "You served with humans," said. She looked at the bracelet, then looked away. "A long time ago." The child's voice broke the silence again. "They'll take her soon. They say she failed the trials. But if she bonds with a human, they can't touch her. It's the law." The woman closed her eyes. Her hands curled into fists. "I told you never to speak of that," she whispered to the child. Rail was trying to keep up. Trials, bonding laws, what did all this mean? He looked at the woman. There was strength in her face, but also a deep sadness. "I don't understand your laws," he said, "but if she's in danger, maybe I can help." She looked at him again, and this time her expression changed. Not anger, not fear, just something close to exhaustion. "I don't want your pity," she said. "I don't want lies. This is my problem, not yours." The child stepped between them, arms out like a shield. "He's not lying. He's good. I saw it in his eyes. I've been watching him since he landed." The woman didn't blink as the armored alien stood at her door. She moved the child behind her, one hand on the girl's shoulder. Rail stood still, unsure if he was a guest or now a target. The armored one stepped forward without speaking. His face was covered. The only thing visible were his glowing amber eyes and the strange symbol carved into the armor near the neck. The woman's voice broke the silence. Calm but sharp, she is under the protection of the old accord. You will not take her. The armored figure paused. A long moment passed before he spoke. There is no accord for the unbonded. You know the law. If she refuses again, the council will choose for her. Or remove her. The child clutched her mother's arm tighter. Rael didn't understand all of it, but he knew what he was hearing was dangerous. The woman didn't move. Her voice remained steady. She's just a child. The armored one turned toward Rael now. Is this the off-worlder she tried to bond with? Rael started to speak, but the woman raised her hand slightly. She took a slow breath. This man is just passing through. He is not part of our matters. He was never invited here. The soldier stared a moment longer. Then he left. Silence returned. But it felt different now. Heavier. Rael looked at the woman, then at the girl, then back at the door. I don't understand what just happened. Who are they? What did he mean by bond and removal? The woman turned to him fully now. Her long braid brushed her back as she walked toward a small metal table and sat down. She placed both hands in her lap and stared at the wall. My name is Yora. I was once a commander in the Sky Flame Order. That was before the war ended and the laws changed. She nodded toward the girl. Her name is Nevi. She was born in the middle of peace. But our kind has no room for peaceful children anymore. They only honor strength and purity now. If a mother was not selected by a council-matched male, the child is marked as unstable. Rael frowned. So they punish both of you because you raised her alone. Yora looked at him with tired eyes. Not just alone. I raised her after loving a human. That alone was enough to ruin everything. Rael leaned forward. You were with a human before. Yora hesitated, then nodded once. He was a medic during the Ember conflict. He stayed behind when the others left. He saved lives. He loved deeply. And he died without honor, according to them. Nevi was silent in the corner, listening. Her small fingers played with the edge of her sleeve. Rael's voice lowered. Did he ever marry you? Yora shook her head. We never got the chance. I was taken before we could seal it. Rael looked down at the table. Everything was clearer now. The girl wasn't just asking out of innocence. She was trying to rewrite the ending her father never got. He stood and walked to the door. I should go. I shouldn't be part of this. I'm just a traveler. I fix ships and move on. Nevi's voice stopped him. You could have walked away earlier. You didn't. Rael turned to see her staring at him, not angry, just sure. Yora's voice was softer. Now she's clever. But she shouldn't have brought you into this. They'll watch you now. Every step. If they think you're involved, you won't leave this city the same way you came in. Rael looked at the bracelet again. The one Nevi gave him back in the market. I served once, he said quietly. I've seen how laws can be used to hide fear. Yora nodded slowly. We are not asking for love. We only want safety. If we fake the bond, it might buy time. That's all. Rael stared at her, then at the child, then back to her. Why didn't you run before? Yora closed her eyes. Because I was tired. The city was quiet at night, but that silence meant nothing on this world. The quiet only made fear easier to hear inside Yora's small home. The light flickered from a cracked lamp. Rael stood at the edge of the room, trying to understand what he had just agreed to. A fake bond. A pretend marriage. On a planet that didn't tolerate lies. He looked at Yora. She was sitting beside Nevi, gently brushing the child's hair, her eyes somewhere far away. Tell me exactly what happens if we do this. Yora didn't look at him as she spoke. If the bond is accepted by the local keeper, they won't be able to separate us without proof it's false. And that proof requires time. Something we no longer have. Rael crossed his arms. And what if they do find out it's fake? Yora looked up now. Her voice had no fear, only truth. Then they remove us, quietly. Without trial, Nevi didn't flinch. She had heard it before Rael paced once, then stopped. I've done a lot of reckless things. But marrying a warrior woman I just met to protect her from her own people, that's a new one. Yora raised an eyebrow. It would not be a true marriage. Only a public binding. There is a difference. Not to a 6-year-old girl who just asked me to stay forever. Rael replied that made Yora pause for a long moment. No one spoke, then Yora stood. She walked to a cabinet and pulled out a long cloth, black with silver threads running through it. She placed it over her shoulder. Nevi jumped down and grabbed a small pendant from the shelf. Are you sure? Rael Eskijora met his eyes. I don't have the luxury of being sure. But I do know one thing. If we wait, we lose her. And I will. Not lose her too, Rael nodded once. That was enough for him. They moved through the dark alleys, keeping to the shadows. The streets were quiet, but more eyes were watching now. Rael could feel them. Even without seeing, the tension in the air felt heavier than before they reached a stone building near the edge of the district. The outer wall was cracked, old markings fading under years of wind. Yora stepped forward and knocked once, then twice. Then once again a metal panel slid open. A pale, wrinkled face appeared. Who seeks Keeper Roland? Yora replied calmly. I seek to declare a bond under emergency accord. One outsider, one native. The panel closed. A moment passed. Then, the door creaked to open inside. The chamber was cold and dim. Walls of etched glass surrounded them. An old alien stood in the center, his robes faded, his eyes sharp. This was Keeper Roland. Rael felt the weight of the old one's gaze settle on him first. You're human, the Keeper said. Yes, Rael answered. The Keeper turned to Yora. You. Bring an off-worlder into our binding chamber. Do you understand the risk? Yora bowed her head slightly. I understand everything. This is not about tradition. This is about safety. Roland stepped forward, studying them both. This bond will protect you. But if it is false, the punishment will not fall on you alone. It will fall on the child. Rael's chest tightened. Yora stayed calm, but her voice lowered. Then let it be real enough for now. Roland raised his hand. Light flowed through the glass walls. Symbols lit up around them. The bond had begun. Touch. Palms, the Keeper said. Rael placed his hand on hers. Her skin was warm. Her grip steady. A circle of light rose around them. The air shifted. Roland chanted the ancient words that sealed the pairing in front of the city's law. Then it was done. Roland gave them each a symbol to wear. They left the Keeper's chamber before sunrise. The streets were still empty, but the silence felt sharp. Every doorway looked like a trap. Every shadow felt like a watcher. Rael walked between Yora and Nevi, the bond token still warm against his chest. People glanced at them through cracked windows. Some nodded without smiling. Others turned away. The bond was supposed to protect them. Instead, it had painted a target at the edge of the district. An old transport worker blocked their path. His clothes were stained with grease, his arms marked with factory tattoos. He looked at Rael with narrow eyes. You think they'll let this last? He said. Rael didn't answer. He had nothing to prove to a stranger, but Yora stepped forward. They can try to stop it, she said, but they'll do it with their masks off this time. The man gave a slow nod, then stepped aside. His silence said more than words. People were watching. Some quietly wished them well. Others waited for them to fall. They moved into the underlayers of the city. Tunnels filled with old machines and leaking pipes. The lights flickered. Steam hissed from broken vents. Nevi coughed but didn't complain. Rael helped her climb over a pile of rusted metal. She reached for his hand without hesitation. He held it a moment longer than needed. Yora watched them from behind. Her eyes didn't show it, but something had changed. This human wasn't running. He wasn't afraid of dirt or danger. He wasn't. Pulling away from them, inside a hollowed-out storage room, they sat on crates and shared the last of their water. Yora rubbed her forehead. I trained to fight fleets, she said. But I never imagined hiding like this with a child and a stranger. Rael looked at her. I've met generals who were scared of silence. You're not like them. She raised an eyebrow. You think hiding in this place makes me strong? No, he said, but staying here to protect your daughter does. Nevi pulled out a small music crystal and played a soft tune. It filled the room like a forgotten memory. Her voice joined in, quiet and sweet, a song from her father's world. Human words, alien melody. Yora listened without speaking. Her hand moved over the scars on her arm. She remembered that voice. The man who taught her the song before he died. He had laughed too loud, loved too easily. Just like Rael. Suddenly, the floor above creaked. Heavy boots, voices. The council guards were near. Rael stood, grabbed a metal pipe, and moved to the door. Yora pulled Nevi close. They're tracking us, she whispered. They didn't believe the bond. They want proof it's fake. Rael looked at her. Then we give them something real. She stared at him. Unsure. You mean fight? I mean survive. He said. They climbed through a maintenance shaft, crawling on elbows, ignoring the heat and the grime. Nevi moved fast, guiding them through old routes she had learned while hiding from patrols. They emerged into a room filled with broken transport bikes and half-dead lights. The air smelled like burnt oil. But for now, it was safe. Rael turned to Yora. I need to know something. Why did they let you keep her? If your bond wasn't official back then, why wasn't she taken years ago? Yora sat down beside her rusted console. Because they hoped I would come back in line. They gave me a job in the outer zone, far away from the rain began to fall from the dusty sky, thick drops hitting the old roof of the warehouse like footsteps from above. Inside, everything was quiet except the sound of water dripping from broken beams. Rael stood at the far wall, watching through a small crack. Guards were on the move again. They wore the symbol of the council. Their boots were clean, their rifles ready. He turned to Yora, who was busy wrapping Nevi in an old blanket. The girl was burning with fever, her breath short and her hands cold. She was fine yesterday, Rael said. Yora didn't answer right away. She pressed her hand against Nevi's head, then closed her eyes for a moment. She always gets sick when she's scared, she whispered. It happened once before. After they took her father, Rael looked around the dark space. They had no medicine, no clean water. No exit. We can't stay here, he said. We need help. Yora pulled the blanket tighter around her daughter. There is no help. Not anymore. Rael walked to the door again, fists tight. He hated this. The waiting. The fear. The feeling of being hunted outside. Across the broken street, he spotted a council vehicle. They were sweeping the zone building by building. If they found them now, it would all be over. I'll draw them away, he said. Sudden. Yora stood fast. No. If they catch you alone, they'll charge you with illegal bonding and deception. You'll be taken to the council courts. That means exile. Or death. Rael looked at her without blinking. Better me than her. Yora's lips parted, but the words never came. Her eyes searched his face like she was trying to understand what kind of man would say something like that, without shaking. He didn't wait for her permission. He ran through the back door, through the rain, through the alleys and markets. He ran toward the soldiers, not away from them. They saw him at the corner near the processing block. One shouted. Two more raised weapons. Rael slowed down just enough to be caught. They threw him against a wall and searched him. He didn't fight. He didn't resist. He only asked for one thing. Let the girl go. Let the mother go. They did nothing wrong. The guards didn't reply. One of them hit him in the ribs with the butt of his rifle. Rael went down but didn't cry out. They dragged him through the streets like a criminal. People watched from doorways but said nothing. They brought him to a small council post near the central square. There, behind a thick shield wall, sat a new officer. His armor was darker, his eyes colder. "You're the outsider," the officer said. "The one who dared to claim a bond with a warrior woman." Rail wiped the blood from his mouth and nodded once. "I am." The officer tilted his head. "Why?" Rail stared at him without fear. "Because her daughter asked me to. And I said yes." The officer laughed. A dry, empty sound. "You humans are strange. You don't understand the price of words here." Rail leaned forward. "I understand promises. And I keep mine." They locked him in a cold holding room. Alone. No food. No sound. Just the weight of walls and silence pressing in. He stayed there for hours. Then something happened. The door opened. Yora stepped in. Armor scraped. Breath short. Behind her was a robed figure. The Hall of Witnesses was buried under the oldest part of the city. It wasn't marked on any map. The council denied it existed. But the keeper led them there with quiet steps and heavy eyes. Rail walked beside Yora in silence. Her hand rested on Nevi's shoulder, guiding the child through narrow tunnels of stone and flickering light. None of them spoke, but their thoughts pressed close around them. They stopped at a massive door carved with symbols older than both human and alien records. The keeper placed his palm on the stone. A low hum filled the space as the door began to open. Inside was a wide chamber made of dark crystal. In the center stood a chair formed from living roots. Seated within it was a figure so still he looked carved from the same stone. The elder opened his eyes. His skin was cracked with age, but his gaze held the weight of centuries. His voice, when he spoke, filled the room without sound traveling through the air. "You bring a bonded pair into my presence. That means you seek the truth, not protection." The keeper bowed his head. "They ask for passage. The trial of truth. Let them be tested." The elder looked at Rail first. "You are human. Your kind has always been full of fire. Quick to love. Quick to burn. Do you understand what you risk here?" Rail nodded once. "I do, but I gave my word. I won't step back." The elder turned to Yora. "You were once chosen to lead. You were honored by war. Then you chose love. And they called it weakness. Do you regret that choice?" Yora's eyes held steady. "No. I only regret the silence that came after." The elder looked at Nevi last. His voice lowered as he spoke to the child. "You have seen fear. You have carried weight no child should carry. Do you know why they ran from your mother's love?" Nevi's voice was soft. "Because it made her stronger than their laws." The elder closed his eyes and leaned back. Then let the trial begin. From the walls, light poured in. Images rose in the air around them, moments from their pasts. Memories pulled from deep within. Rail saw his own failures. People he had left behind. Friends who trusted him and never saw him again. He felt those moments press against his chest. Like stones, he saw himself walking away from people who needed him. Then he saw Nevi in the market, her small voice asking him to stay. And this time, he didn't walk away. Aura's memories rose too. Her first battle. The day she stood over the body of the human medic who had loved her. The council's judgment. The day they told her she was unfit to lead because she cried for him. She didn't speak. She didn't defend herself. She only let the memory burn in silence. The elder watched it all. Then the light faded. He stood, slowly, using a long staff for balance. "You were brought here because your bond was called false. But the truth is clear now." Rail held his breath. Elder continued, "You did not bond to escape law. You bonded because something inside you both refused to live in silence. And the child saw that before either of you did." He turned to the keeper. "Seal the bond under the old law. Let it be written that feeling is not failure. That love is not a crime." The keeper stepped forward and handed them a new token. This one shimmered with golden lines, pulsing softly with life. "This bond cannot be broken by counsel or command. It is rooted in truth." Nevi reached up and took the token in her hands. She looked at Rail, then at her mother. "Does this mean we're safe now?" Before anyone could answer, They walked through the broken streets as the morning light touched the city's tallest towers. Smoke still floated in the air. The council had sent more guards, more threats, but no one dared stop them. Rael held Nevi in one arm. Her fever had faded. Her eyes were open again. She looked ahead at the gates of the city, and for the first time in her life, she wasn't afraid of what waited on the other city. Yora walked beside him. Her head was high. Her armor still carried scars, but her steps were steady. She no longer looked like a woman trying to survive. She looked like a woman who had already won at the city gates. The guards stood frozen. They had been given orders, but none of them moved. The keeper stepped forward from the side wall, holding the golden token high in the air. His voice echoed across the stone. This family walks under truth. They are protected by the law that came before your fear. You will not raise a weapon against them. One of the guards lowered his rifle. Then another. And then the rest. Rael turned to the people gathered near the square. Some were whispering. Some were watching in silence. Some were waiting to see if someone else would act. He took a step forward, holding Nevi tighter. I came here by accident, he said, and I thought I would leave alone. But this girl asked me to stay. She asked me something no one had asked me in years. She asked if I could be part of something again. He looked at Yora, and then her mother showed me what strength really looks like. She didn't need saving. She needed someone who wouldn't run when things got hard. He looked back at the crowd. You fear love because it breaks control. But look at her. Look at this child. You cannot call this bond false. You cannot call this family a crime. No one replied. Then a voice rose from the crowd. A woman stepped forward and said softly, my sister was punished for choosing her own path. I still remember how she smiled before they took her. Then a man beside her spoke. I served under Yora in the war. She saved my life. The council said she was unstable, but I only saw someone who refused to give up. More people began to speak. The silence cracked, and in that moment, the fear began to fall apart. Rael reached for Yora's hand. She didn't pull away. He looked at her with quiet certainty. I came here alone, but I'm not leaving that way. Yora squeezed his hand and nodded. Neither am I. Nevi smiled between them. Then let's go together. The gates opened outside. The horizon stretched wide. A sky waiting to be claimed. A future not promised but possible. They stepped through. Not as fugitives but as something new. A family born in the heart of fear but shaped by trust. The old rules had tried to break them, but love, even a love that started with a child's question, had held them together, and now the world would have to learn what that kind of love could become.